It says live. We're live? Oh, cool. So, hello everyone. We're back again. Sorry about the outage. We just had a short break, but here we are again. And we're here. I'm PJ Thum. We're here with Constance Singam, who is one of the
You don't have to keep repeating it.
Well, I mean, in case people have just joined, they'll want to know. Because this video will be then standalone by itself, so they'll want to know one of the leading women's rights activists.
Civil society activists.
Civil society activists, yes, absolutely. For the past, 40 odd years? Yeah, 40 years or so? Yeah. And actually that's a good place to start, because before the break we were talking about younger people getting into activism, right, and trying to make Singapore a better place. And we were talking about overcoming fear and overcoming inertia. So maybe you can tell us how you got into activism in the first place. You were a very reluctant activist, I understand.
In the early, I think at that stage, most civil society was silenced for a long time.
Yeah.
So where was the first organizations to break that silence, and I was interested, but the founding members were very strong women, very successful women, and I was intimidated. I didn't want to. When they invited me for the opening, I didn't go. I got an invitation, I didn't take it up. I was too scared to go. Right. So they're all such powerful women, you see. But I had friends there and they kept asking me to join. So the second year I did join.
Right. And what year was this?
1986. 86. 87 I became president.
Oh wow, that was a rapid...
That was quick. Yeah. Yes. But also it was the time Marxist conspiracy.
Yes.
And I think they wanted somebody who was not known. I was persuaded to stand. This is my speculation. Nobody will tell me. I was an unknown, you see. And I had no responsibilities. I was alone. And so I was safe. So I became president in the third year of AWARE. And young people, when they come and talk to me about how to get involved, how to take that step, that first step is the hardest.
Yeah.
I mean, like me, it was hard. And a lot of young people say, all these very powerful people, and they are so established, I can't go, what will they think of me, So that first step is important. Once you take that first step, you become empowered by your involvement and by the activities. You become empowered, you become educated, and in fact, you grow, you really grow. And that's what happened to me, Yeah. It's the work itself. So you think that you are doing good for the community, for a person, for an ideal, but meanwhile you're growing, you're becoming empowered, you're becoming educated. So I tell young people, you can't just sit back and say, I can't do this, I can't do it. You can do it, but you have to jump in. So that's the first thing people have to do. And a lot of young people, I notice, they do single issues, or it can't be sustained.
Yeah.
Single projects, it can't be what they have to do is to find out about organizations and which organization they can associate with or they share the values with, and join the organization, and from there you learn how to organize. And if you want to break up and do your own thing, then you can, but you can't do it straight away. You have to be part of something. You have to have a group.
Yeah,
I wrote a document how to start an organization, because some young people came to me and asked me, how do you start an organization?
Okay.
So I have written it up now. So anybody asks me, I just send them that.
Is it online? Can people find it online somewhere?
No, it's not online. I
Okay.
didn't put it online, but I can, you know.
I think that'd
but
be great.
it's always, all the organizations that I have been involved with and starts with a conversation.
Yes.
Always, you start with conversation, and you have a group of people. The conversation inspires you, and because you're with the group, you know, you become empowered in that conversation. So that conversation is what you start with.
Yeah.
You know?
If you look at the history of human society, right, the way to create change is actually really simple and has not changed in thousands of years of human history, and it's exactly what you say.
Yeah.
Starting with a conversation,
Yes.
talking about issues, convincing people, organizing them, and that's the thing, organizing people to act for change collectively.
Yes.
It's very, very simple,
Yeah.
but it is very hard to do.
That's right. Yeah. It is, that's true. It's getting together a group of people, and you know, sometimes an issue will bring people together. That's what happened to TWC too.
Yes.
You know, an issue or abuse, that horrendous abuse of a woman brought us together to start, you know. So I mean, it was public policies that brought these women together, you know, population policies. So sometimes it is that, sometimes it is just, you may not start with the idea of starting an organization. You might start with just conversation, having an interesting conversation, you know. And we still have conversations, we still have groups, you know. We have a monthly group which we call Tuesday People.
Oh, great.
We meet.
Tuesday
and
is weekly though.
Yes, I know. We didn't know what to call it, you see. But now Tuesday People are meeting on Thursdays and Wednesdays.
Well, a new narrative, we actually try and host conversations as well. We call them democracy classrooms.
Yes.
And all we ask is people show up and be willing to talk about things with other people in an environment of trust and mutual respect.
Yeah.
It's okay to disagree, it's okay to not have an opinion, it's okay not to have a fully formed opinion, it's okay not to know, right? But we try and create an environment where you come and then we split you up into diverse groups of people you've never met to just talk about issues. And that's really the most basic necessity of any democracy, right, is simply to have conversations and not be afraid to have conversations about important things. And that's where we hope, you know, as we normalize this idea of speaking and discussing things, that slowly this important aspect of democracy will grow, and then people also self-organize using, you know, from these from this experience. Yeah.
The circles grow.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, one of the disadvantages of living and working in Singapore is that also people work such long hours.
Yes.
You know, so they don't really have the time to engage. So I don't know whether the pandemic has taught us anything at all, that we can work shorter hours, we can work flexible hours, we can work from home, you know. So
and we can also take part in these from home. New Narrative has been organizing our democracy classrooms online, on Zoom, right? So for those of you out there who are interested in taking part, you just need to go to New Narrative's Facebook page or newnarrative.com/events, and you can see our democracy classroom, and you can just sign up and attend, and it's on Zoom, so you don't even have to go anywhere. Just sit down at your web browser, click on the link, and you'll be part of a conversation. And so we're trying to lower these barriers, right?
But one of the things I noticed that too in our own organizing of various episodes of conversations, if you create an environment, people do they learn how to speak up.
Yes.
You know, and slowly they think, we can say these things, because most of the time in the wider environment, the wider community, people don't talk. Full stop. They don't talk. You know, they talk about the basic things, you know, have you had dinner, come for dinner, or drink, whatever. But politics or cultural or topics, you self-censor. But when you create an environment where somebody is opening up, it encourages other people to open up.
And
you know,
just being vulnerable is very scary, right?
Yes.
And being willing to speak about something when you know you don't have all the facts. No one can have all the facts, right? You need to create an environment people are willing to be open and honest and vulnerable. And I think, unfortunately, the PAP know this, which is why a law, for example, like POFMA, which makes people terrified to speak
Yes.
unless they are 100% absolutely accurate, which no one can ever be,
You know.
right, is so destructive towards our psyches, our political lives, our whole democracy, our mutual trust and respect, because every big conversation now, someone will joke about, oh, don't POFMA me, but, or, I don't want to get POFMA, so I'm not going to say anything, or hashtag don't POFMA me, which is nonsense, but that's the impact of a law like POFMA. Yeah, unfortunately. But let's come back to you because, okay, so you came into activism at a time where there was vast changes happening in Singapore, right? We had our first opposition politician since '68 in JBJ. And then a second one in '84, Cham Si Tong, in response to the PAP government's massive screw-ups, to the Second Industrial Revolution, the changes to the HDB, the CPF, to education, the ending of vernacular education, merging of NANTA with the University of Singapore to create NUS, vernacular newspapers being shut down. So all these massive changes.
Language policy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, the most insane looking back now, the whole eugenics, right?
Yes, that's
graduate
right.
mothers, all of that. And so it must have been, I guess, partly a very terrifying time to step up, but also with so many urgent things happening, you stepped forward.
Well, I didn't, they did. The founding members were aware did. I just joined them, And I think the advantage they had was they were women.
Right.
And they were firstly dealing with women's issues.
Yeah.
And lots of men don't understand it. Yeah. So they think of them as harmless.
Right.
Till they start talking and till they start confronting policies and, But they think, oh, women's issues, we can deal with that,
Yeah.
So I'm speculating, I think that's the advantage they had.
Yeah.
I
mean, personally, one thing that still surprises me is how women are just not taken as seriously as men in sport.
But if you look at civil society, I think Margie edited a book. Women had been in the forefront of change in Singapore.
Absolutely.
And civil society activism.
Yeah.
The major cultural changes that have taken place in Singapore have been initiated by women.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Starting with the Women's Charter, we were talking about
Yeah,
Chan Choi Siong
yeah.
during the break. And the other female PAP members, Ho Pui Chu, I think she's still alive. Is she still alive? I can't remember.
don't know.
Anyway, she
Yeah.
defected to the Barisan, so they probably forgot about her. But
Yeah.
there were a lot of women there, leading that. And that PAP government was unafraid to embrace that because they wanted to win votes. They wanted to win women's
Precisely,
votes.
yes.
They actually, and this is something that people are surprised by when I pointed out, they have redefined marriage several times in Singapore's history. Right, and people today somehow say, let's not redefine marriage, traditional marriage. But the PAP did that with the Women's Charter.
Yes.
Marriage back then
And
was
that
one
was
man,
the
4
most
women.
fundamental change in family culture in Singapore,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And they were willing to do it. They were
Yeah,
radical.
they
One
were.
man, one
They
woman.
were. They
right?
were.
Yeah.
And they've lost their courage.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I remember till the 1980s, when we had the recession too, there used to be a 5-year economic plan. So they used to look ahead and make plans. I don't hear that anymore. Although there have been many committees set up, I can't even remember their names, but then you don't hear about it after that. It's just a big PR exercise, and that's
it's always
the end
the
of
same
it.
fundamental recommendations.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So we have lost, like the PAP has lost, and so have we. We have lost our courage to take risks, to think differently. you know.
I think there is a lot of courage out there in the private sector. People are taking risks, right? But you don't really hear a lot about it. And of course, anyone who joins opposition politics or gets into activism is taking a big risk.
They are, yes, that's
but
true.
it's just not within the establishment, which has become very calcified, very ossified and conservative.
I mean, they're in a comfortable position.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they're
why
in a
rock the
comfortable
boat, right?
place.
Why risk your $1 million
That's
salaries?
Right. Yes, I mean it's not just them; it's the whole of the civil service, and they're all doing well. They're all doing well, and they have done well under the PAP. And in fact, a lot of people will recognize that we have all done well over the years. You know, it's just that now. The future is not so certain, and life for young people is not so certain or secure. I know Josephine Teo said that you just need little space to make babies, to have sex, but you need more than that to raise a family.
Absolutely.
You know, and so that kind of vision, it's small-mindedness that is that's destroying our creativity. And is there something happening there?
Would you like to take some questions?
Oh, sure.
Oh,
yes,
yes,
please.
sure.
Yes.
Do you have
Let's
any
take some
questions?
questions, guys. If you have questions, please feel free to just put them in the comments. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, just put them in the comments. In particular, Facebook, not YouTube. Just Facebook, go to the Facebook page and put that in the comments, and Connie and I will be happy to answer them. Particularly I have questions for Connie because you have here a living national treasure, you know, 80 over years of experience.
Lived a long life.
Somebody who's seen it all, who remembers Singapore from back when we were a British colony, and then part of Malaysia, and then a newly independent country. And then in the 80s, when the government declared that our developmental stage was over, we were going to move into a new phase, and then caused all this chaos, and then all the transformation of society, neoliberalism in the 90s, and all of that, right? So do put some comments, questions, and yeah. So while we're waiting for questions, let's just come back to the topic of elections. Is there any particular election, you know, you've seen so many, that sticks out in your mind? Or is there anything? Yeah?
The one is where Francis Xiao and Tan Hong Leng.
88, right? 88, yes.
I remember attending those rallies and being fascinated by. So that was an interesting election. Of course, what happened after that, every time I noticed that every time we get excited and shed some of our fear, something happens to bring us back.
Right.
You know, to herd us back into good behavior. So that was an interesting election. And what was the 2011 was another interesting election. And I remember for many years I couldn't exercise my democratic rights because it was all walkover.
2011 was my first year voting as well, because I was 31, and I had never been able to vote. And that was my first election voting.
But I can understand people's fears. I mean, one of the things I wrote in my blog is that we never believed the voting is secret. I mean, we all thought they know who we vote for.
Right.
So I remember once, and I can't remember which election it was, I was determined to vote the opposition till I reached the booth, you know, And then I was too scared and I voted the PAP.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is, and I have heard stories like that.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
It's been quantified in a survey by some academics. I think it was at University of British Columbia, one of them was at, where they actually surveyed people and asked whether they had changed their vote because of fear. And they deliberately didn't ask from which party to which party or you know, anything. They just asked, did you change your vote because of fear? And they tried to control for age and geography and language and class and things like that. And so this was very, they said, right, there's, if I remember the paper correctly, that this is, there's a very broad range, but they estimated it could be anywhere between 5 and 30% of the vote change because of fear. So if you look at 2011, a swing of just 20-something% or so, and the PAP would have lost outright. So you could argue that the PAP only stayed in government in 2011 because of this fear. And again in 2015, if you look at the same effect, right, they surveyed people both from 2011 to 2015, the PAP should have lost their 2/3 majority, but didn't because of that fear. So the fear is real and it is affecting our election results. And anecdotally, you've just, you know, given us one
of the things, to go back to history, one of the things that, you know, we talked about the first election, and we voted for real unknowns, a new party. And remember, that new party was coming and taking control of a new government, the British left, and they really didn't have civil service, and they had to build a whole new structure, you know, government structure, and they did it. You know, they were new, they did it. So to say that new people don't know how to run or manage, I look at the candidates now, I see they are far more skilled, much better. Some of them hold degrees which are superior to the Lee family degrees, and well educated with lots of experience. So I don't know why we question their ability. When we didn't question the ability of people who started this country, you know.
The original PAP in '59, they had carpenters,
precisely,
they had
postman, postman. He was in the cabinet, you know. The postman was in the cabinet.
And who are you referring to specifically? Do you remember?
Who was the postman? Can you remember?
I think you're talking about oh man, the minister who died in 1960, was that him? 62, the minister who died in,
I can't remember.
Okay. I know who you mean though. Names, always too many names.
So I remember when we saw the PAP lineup, I mean, we were amused, you know, as well. They are going to be running the country, but we gave them the opportunity to do that, you know, which we are not doing now. You know, and who knows, you know. We had to take those kind of risks.
So again, if you have any questions for Connie or I, please do put them in the Facebook comments. We'd be happy to answer any questions. I think just to address one of the things that you mentioned.
Are there questions?
I don't. Terry, are there questions?
I don't see.
I mean, there aren't any questions from what I can see, but we can only see the bottom 2 comments.
No questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's a pity. So the whole thing about is the vote secret? Right? We know it's secret. It's verifiably secret because of the whole process. And there are almost 12,000 volunteers, polling agents there, independent citizen volunteers to verify that it's secret. So we know it's secret, and yet the fear is still there. The fear is still real. And people always ask about the serial number, but that's to prevent fraud. Right? And the serial number is not checked unless there's an accusation of fraud, and there's never been an accusation of fraud, so the serial number has never been checked. But it's really important that we repeat this, because otherwise people don't realize that the vote is verifiably secret and there's still fear. And of course, the other thing you mentioned.
One of the things that I want to ask you about this question of fear is that, the PAP, every election, they do this gerrymandering. That means they take a bulk of the particular constituency and move them to another, which means they know that this bulk, this group, are either voting for the PAP or not voting for the PAP, and they move them to their advantage, to work for their advantage. How do they know that?
Well, because counting is done on a polling station, polling district level, right? So when they count, they take all the boxes from a certain polling district and count them together.
Yes.
And then they tally them all up to make the whole constituency. So they actually have an idea of what the vote is on a district level.
Yes.
And block. Yeah, it can even be on a block level, because of the polling stations and the boxes as the A1, A2, A3.
Yeah.
So your vote is secret. It's merely the fact that there's a
the individual vote is secret.
The individual vote
is secret. But they can speculate about a block vote, a street vote, and so on, because of the polling stations.
Yes, polling districts. Yes. So a GRC could have, was it 30 or more districts? I think at least 30. I think, if not more. So you can actually subdivide these. I think way more than that actually. Could be up to 60.
SMC has about 10, 12, 13.
Yeah, okay. So if an SMC has about 10 to 15, then a GRC could have between 3 and 5 times that. So 45 to 60. Yeah. So that's how they know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of information that people have to know, so that that fear about, they know how I vote.
Yeah.
At least that won't stop them from doing what is right and what their values are, whether they, So I think one of the things that we don't ask enough questions is, somebody stands in your constituency. It's very difficult with GRCs. You do need to talk to that individual who is going to represent you.
Yes.
Yeah. And you had to find out more, how is he going to work for your interest,
So actually there's a question there on the screen which I think you actually might be well suited to answer, which from Irene, who says, Singapore's baby plans have failed. Why not do it like other countries? Free education, children's monthly allowance, and care after school. What's stopping this government from doing it? So as a former president of AWARE, this is probably something you have
current president is sitting there. Okay. Can you repeat the question? I got distracted, sorry.
So it says, Singapore's baby plans have failed. Why not
Singapore's
do it?
What plan has
baby
plan
plans
has failed.
Why not do it like other countries? Free education, children's monthly allowance, and care after school. What's stopping this government from doing it? And I think maybe she was also being Teo and saying, you very little space to have sex, but to make babies, but you need a lot of space to raise children, right? So I think maybe that's the context of which this question was coming in.
I think I would respond to that question by saying, actually, it starts that even before you have babies, because 86% of our population living in HD flats, and I know that 20% of them live in single room flat, 1 room or 3 room flats,
right.
And young people are most likely to get married in their mid-20s, all right, late 20s. Can you afford to buy an HDB flat? You have to share with your parents.
Yeah.
So you might you can have sex anywhere, you know, but do you want to have privacy? You want to have space, those children. One, the space, you know.
Yeah.
And HDB, the way HDB architecture is organized, is not very family friendly. All right. Three, cost of living. You know, I can't remember the statistics. The percentage of our population earn less than 3,000.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you start a family on that?
Yes.
So these are questions that people. So I know young people who are not getting married. They tell me they are not going to get married because they can't.
They can't
afford it.
to get, yeah.
And what kind of future are the children going to have?
Yeah.
You know, have children, who is going to look after them? Going to kindergarten is already 4 years, but that first 4 years, who is going to look after the child, you know?
Yeah.
So those are questions which every parent or every young couple want to get married and raise a family will ask themselves.
So I
After
think,
that,
yeah.
yes, then you address all the other problems, you know,
Right.
of free meals in school and free education. I don't think we have compulsory education. Compulsory education is only in primary school. We don't have compulsory secondary education. So if you're talking about a high-skilled population, high-skilled working population, you have to raise that level. You have to make secondary school compulsory as well. You know, which we haven't done. Why haven't we done? So we can, why haven't we done? Because then we can import people. We don't have to work hard at educating our own people. When somebody else, other country would have educated their population, you can bring them here. You know, give them free access to our resources.
I think you're getting at something really important there, which also Irene was asking, what's stopping this government? I think it's this, I don't know if ideology is the right word,
Yeah.
but because of an overriding focus on cost and value and measuring, you know, a lot of the fundamental tenets of neoliberalism, and it being easier to import people than to train your own people.
Yes. Yeah.
But also that a lot of the things that she's talking about or that you are talking about, these are expensive, right? So is
And
this
they
a
need
government
planning,
planning, right?
forward planning. Yeah.
So is this a government that is too obsessed with how much things cost right now to devote a lot of investment into their people, because that sort of thing only pays off down the road? And investing in your own population also is...
But you have to do it at some stage.
Yeah.
You have to start that investment at some stage. I mean, for instance, I was talking about migrant workforce. And I know that other people, like I have relatives in Australia, they say the building construction industry uses a lot of machinery. So that you don't need so much labor,
Yeah.
you know. Why haven't we done it? And I was talking to somebody, so because it's expensive, you have to make that investment. You know, why haven't we done that?
That's a very
It's
good
cheap,
question.
it's cheap to import people, you know,
Yeah.
and then treat them badly. So what we are doing is we are importing people. We are becoming in the process being dehumanized.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. For those of you out there, if you're interested in this question, you should reach out to candidates and challenge them on it, right? How are you going to invest in people in the future? How are you going to invest in Singaporeans? How are you going to maintain our heavy dependence on exploited, cheap migrant, low-wage labor? These are questions that you can ask your politicians right now.
To do with low-wage earner, that also keeps our wages low.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and which is go back to raising children and raising a family. It's all linked.
Yes. Yes, I think one of the biggest mistakes we made was really from the 90s, just importing all this foreign labor and suppressing our wages and eliminating real wages for several decades now.
Can I have a last question? The question is, does the creation of GRC diminish the transparency and accountability of other candidates as they are hanging on the coattails of other leaders of the GRC? This is on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
I mean, you can answer that.
well, we can
We can both answer
yeah.
that. Yes. The question was